Detailed report on the 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict. Overview. The 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict escalated significantly on July 24, 2025, marking one of the most severe clashes between the two nations in over a decade. The conflict is rooted in historical territorial disputes stemming from colonial-era treaties and contentious ownership of the Preah Vihear Temple, exacerbated by recent military engagements. The situation escalated rapidly, resulting in significant casualties and widespread displacement of civilians. Historical background. The origins of the conflict trace back to colonial treaties signed between 1904 and 1907, which delineated territorial boundaries between the Kingdom of Siam, now Thailand, and the Kingdom of Cambodia, then under French protection. Tensions reached a boiling point in 1962 when the International Court of Justice ruled in favor of Cambodia regarding the ownership of the Preah Vihear Temple, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Subsequent skirmishes occurred in 2008 to 2011, leading to military confrontations and increasing animosity between the two nations. In early 2025, tensions flared once more when Thai troops prevented Cambodians from singing their national anthem at the Preah Vihear Temple, leading to diplomatic crises and military posturing. A series of incidents involving landmines and armed exchanges further escalated hostilities. Key events timeline. July 24, 2025, outbreak of hostilities. Clashes erupted early in the morning when Cambodian troops allegedly opened fire on Thai positions near the Preah Vihear Temple, around 200 meters from the border. The Thai military responded with airstrikes, deploying F-16 jets to target Cambodian military installations, including command posts. By the end of the day, Thailand reported at least 13 civilians and 6 soldiers killed, while Cambodia reported 1 soldier killed and several civilians injured. Over 135,000 civilians were evacuated from border regions in Thailand as a precaution. July 25, 2025, intensification of conflict. Fighting continued with heavy artillery exchanges reported across the border. Both countries exchanged accusations regarding the initiation of hostilities. Thailand's acting prime minister warned of potential escalation into full-scale war, while Cambodia asserted it maintained control over contested areas. Offers for third-party mediation were made by various nations, including the United States and China, but Thailand insisted on resolving the conflict bilaterally. July 26, 2025, ongoing clashes and martial law. Clashes persisted with reports of further casualties and military maneuvers. Martial law was declared in several Thai districts bordering Cambodia, signaling escalating tensions. Casualty figures continued to rise, with reports indicating significant losses on both sides. Thailand claimed substantial military casualties, while Cambodia reported civilians suffering from bombardments. Casualty figures and humanitarian impact. The conflict has resulted in severe casualties and a humanitarian crisis. Thailand. At least 124 soldiers killed, with additional casualties among civilians and soldiers. Approximately 138,000 civilians evacuated from border areas due to ongoing hostilities. Cambodia. At least 5 soldiers and 8 civilians reported killed, with numerous injuries and extensive displacement. Thousands of civilians were displaced from their homes, exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. Displacement and civilian impact. The conflict has led to significant civilian displacement, with reports indicating that around 138,000 civilians in Thailand and approximately 35,000 in Cambodia were forced to flee their homes. Civilian infrastructure, including hospitals and schools, sustained damage from military operations, further complicating the humanitarian situation. International response. The international community expressed deep concern over the escalating violence. Various nations and organizations, including the United Nations, ASEAN, and several Western and Asian countries, called for restraint, dialogue, and a peaceful resolution to the conflict. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres urged both sides to exercise maximum restraint and seek to resolve issues through dialogue. ASEAN, Malaysia. As the current chair offered to mediate and facilitate dialogue between the conflicting parties. Global reactions. Countries such as the United States, Australia, and Japan emphasized the need for de-escalation and urged both nations to protect civilian lives. Conclusion. The 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict illustrates the fragility of regional stability in Southeast Asia. Historical grievances, territorial disputes, and recent military escalations have culminated in a humanitarian crisis that necessitates urgent international attention. As both nations continue to trade accusations of aggression, the international community's role in facilitating dialogue and promoting peace remains crucial to de-escalating tensions and preventing further violence. The situation continues to evolve with a pressing need for diplomatic efforts aimed at resolving the underlying issues contributing to the conflict. The 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict, which escalated dramatically on July 24, 2025, has revealed several counterintuitive aspects regarding regional tensions, military responses, and international diplomatic efforts. 1. Historical context versus immediate triggers. At first glance, the conflict appears to stem solely from recent military engagements and territorial disputes over historical sites like the Preah Vihear Temple. However, the immediate trigger was a minor incident: Thai troops preventing Cambodians from singing their national anthem at a temple in February 2025. This seemingly small act highlights how sensitive national pride and historical grievances can escalate into significant military confrontations, suggesting that underlying emotions and symbolic incidents can often provoke more severe reactions than tangible territorial disputes. 2. Disproportionate casualty claims. There are stark discrepancies in reported casualty figures between both nations. While Thailand reported much higher casualties, including 124 soldiers killed, Cambodia claimed only a few casualties on its side. This could be interpreted as an attempt by both governments to manipulate public perception and maintain national morale in the face of conflict. The counterintuitive aspect here is that rather than rallying public support against an external enemy, such discrepancies could sow distrust in leadership among citizens who may perceive their government as either downplaying their losses or exaggerating those of the enemy. 3. International mediation rejection. Despite international calls for mediation from major powers like the US and China, Thailand's insistence on resolving the conflict bilaterally is counterintuitive in the context of globalization, where multilateral approaches are often preferred. This stance reflects a nationalist sentiment that prioritizes sovereignty and direct negotiations over international intervention, suggesting a paradox where nations seeking to assert their independence might end up exacerbating their isolation. For civilians as strategic targets, the conflict has seen both sides accusing each other of targeting civilian areas, which may seem counterproductive in a modern warfare context where civilian protection is a priority. Such tactics seem to contradict the global norms established post-World War II regarding the protection of civilians during armed conflict. This could indicate a brutal shift in military strategy where both sides are willing to disregard civilian safety for tactical advantages, thus blurring ethical lines in warfare. 5. Military operations named with propaganda intent. The naming of military operations such as Thailand's Operation Yuthaboden suggests a level of propaganda aimed at domestic audiences rather than simply military effectiveness. This naming convention serves as a rallying cry for national pride. Yet it also underscores the absurdity of glorifying warfare, an act that typically brings suffering and loss. The counterintuitive aspect here is that while military leaders might believe these operations bolster national unity, they may also contribute to escalating tensions and prolonging conflict. 6. Evacuations versus military escalation. Over 135,000 civilians were evacuated from border areas in Thailand. Yet this occurred simultaneously with military escalation. The juxtaposition of civilian safety measures and intensified military action presents a paradoxical situation where governments appear to protect their citizens while also engaging in aggressive warfare. This duality raises questions about the efficacy of government responses to conflict and whether civilian evacuations genuinely reflect a commitment to their safety or simply a strategic maneuver to manage public relations during warfare. 7. Martial law as a response to conflict. The declaration of martial law in Thai districts bordering Cambodia is a striking response that may seem to indicate a loss of control by the government. While martial law is a tool to regain order and ensure security, it can also lead to increased public unrest and resistance against perceived authoritarian measures. The irony lies in the fact that such declarations, while aiming to stabilize a situation, often exacerbate tensions and lead to greater societal division. 8. International relations dynamics. The involvement of ASEAN and other international bodies reflects a complex web of geopolitical interests that often contradict one another. While ASEAN promotes regional stability and cooperation, member states like Thailand and Cambodia's insistence on bilateral negotiations undermines the organization's collective diplomatic efforts. The counterintuitive aspect is that nations may choose immediate national interests over regional cooperation, potentially destabilizing ASEAN's integrity and effectiveness as a diplomatic entity. In summary, the 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict exemplifies the complexities and contradictions inherent in national pride, military strategy, and international diplomacy. The interplay of historical grievances, national identity, and the realities of modern warfare presents a multifaceted landscape that defies conventional expectations about conflict resolution and international relations. The 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict that erupted on July 24, 2025, represents a significant escalation of long-standing tensions between the two nations rooted in historical disputes over territory and national identity. While the immediate triggers of the conflict, such as military skirmishes, casualty figures, and international responses, have garnered considerable attention, there are several crucial aspects of the situation that may be overlooked but hold significant implications for regional stability and future diplomatic efforts. 1. Historical context and its relevance today. The current conflict is deeply intertwined with historical grievances dating back to colonial-era treaties and territorial claims such as those surrounding the Preah Vihear Temple. Many discussions tend to focus on the immediate military actions without fully appreciating how these historical contexts create a charged atmosphere that can quickly escalate into conflict. The colonial legacy has left both nations with unresolved nationalistic sentiments, which can be easily manipulated by political leaders to rally domestic support. Significance: recognizing this historical context is critical for international mediators and regional actors like ASEAN. Understanding the roots of the conflict can help in framing potential resolutions that acknowledge both countries' historical grievances, facilitating a more nuanced and effective diplomatic dialogue. 2. Discrepancies in casualty reports. Reports from both sides present conflicting casualty figures, which can lead to misunderstanding and miscalculations in military strategy. For instance, while Thailand reported over 124 soldiers killed, Cambodia's figures were substantially lower. This discrepancy raises questions about the reliability of information and the potential for propaganda to fuel further hostilities. Significance: these differences in casualty reporting can exacerbate tensions and lead to retaliation based on perceived losses. It highlights the need for third-party verification mechanisms in conflict situations to ensure accurate information dissemination, which is crucial for de-escalation efforts. 3. International reactions and the role of ASEAN. While there has been a flurry of international responses urging both sides to exercise restraint, Thailand's rejection of third-party mediation, including proposals from ASEAN, raises concerns about the effectiveness of the regional bloc in mitigating conflicts. Thailand has historically preferred bilateral negotiations, often sidelining multilateral mechanisms that could provide a more balanced approach to conflict resolution. Significance: the dynamics within ASEAN regarding conflict resolution need to be scrutinized. If member states prefer unilateral actions over collective regional solutions, it undermines ASEAN's credibility and effectiveness. This conflict could serve as a catalyst for ASEAN to re-evaluate its mechanisms for conflict management and enhance its capacity for collective security. 4. Impact on civilians and humanitarian concerns. The conflict has led to the evacuation of over 135,000 civilians in Thailand and significant displacements in Cambodia. The targeting of civilian infrastructure such as hospitals and gas stations raises serious humanitarian concerns. These actions may not only violate international humanitarian laws but also lead to long-term destabilization in the border regions. Significance: the humanitarian aspect of the conflict often receives secondary attention compared to military engagements. However, the long-term implications of civilian displacement can lead to socio-economic instability and resentment that fuels future conflicts. Addressing humanitarian needs should be prioritized in any peace negotiations to ensure stability and mitigate future grievances. 5. Military strategy and future engagements. The conflict has seen significant military maneuvers, including airstrikes and ground offensives, which indicate a shift in military strategy and preparedness on both sides. The implementation of specific operations such as Operation Boden suggests that military leaders are prepared for prolonged engagements, which could spiral into a broader conflict. Significance: understanding the military strategies employed can provide insights into the potential for future escalations. The readiness of both nations to engage in sustained conflict indicates a precarious situation that could destabilize the entire region. Monitoring military movements and strategies is essential for anticipating the next phases of the conflict and guiding diplomatic interventions. 6. National leadership and political dynamics. The leadership in both countries plays a crucial role in shaping responses to the conflict. Leaders like Hun Sen in Cambodia and Paetongtarn Shinawatra in Thailand are using nationalist rhetoric to galvanize support, which can further entrench positions and reduce the willingness to negotiate. Significance: the political dynamics at the leadership level are critical to understanding how conflicts can escalate or de-escalate. Observers should not only focus on military actions but also on the domestic political landscapes that influence leaders' decisions. Engaging civil society and promoting dialogue among different political factions could be vital for fostering a conducive environment for peace. 7. Regional implications and global geopolitics. The conflict has broader implications, particularly given the strategic interests of global powers in Southeast Asia. The involvement of countries like the US and China in urging for dialogue suggests that the conflict could have ramifications beyond regional borders, affecting global geopolitical dynamics. Significance: this aspect highlights the necessity for a coordinated international approach to conflict resolution that considers both regional and global stakes. It may also influence how other countries in the region view their own territorial disputes and relations, emphasizing the need for a comprehensive security framework in Southeast Asia. Conclusion: the 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict is not merely a series of military engagements, it is a complex situation rooted in historical grievances exacerbated by nationalistic rhetoric and influenced by both regional and global dynamics. Recognizing and addressing the overlooked aspects of this conflict is essential for effective conflict resolution and prevention of future hostilities. A multifaceted approach that includes historical understanding, humanitarian considerations, and international cooperation will be vital in achieving lasting peace in the region. The 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict presents a complex scenario that necessitates an in-depth analysis to understand its implications fully. Here are 4 valuable points for discussion and analysis. 1. Historical context and territorial disputes. The conflict's origins are deeply rooted in historical territorial disputes dating back to colonial-era treaties between the Kingdom of Siam, Thailand and the Kingdom of Cambodia. The contention surrounding the Preah Vihear Temple, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, has been particularly significant. The International Court of Justice (ICJ) ruled in favor of Cambodia in 1962 regarding the temple's ownership, but tensions have persisted, fueled by competing nationalist sentiments and claims over various non-demarcated areas along the 800-kilometer border. This historical backdrop is essential for understanding the current conflict dynamics, as it illustrates how unresolved issues from the past continue to affect relations between the two nations. 2. Escalation of violence and military engagement. The conflict reached a critical point on July 24, 2025, when intense gunfire and airstrikes marked one of the most severe clashes in recent history. The military actions involved artillery exchanges and airstrikes by Thailand, which claimed to target Cambodian military installations. The severe casualties reported on both sides, including civilian deaths, indicate a dramatic escalation that raises concerns about the potential for a full-scale war. The declaration of martial law in border provinces of Thailand further underscores the seriousness of the situation. Understanding the military strategies employed, such as Thailand's Operation Uthaboden, and the implications for regional security is crucial for analyzing the conflict's trajectory. 3. International responses and diplomatic efforts. The international community's response has been one of concern, with calls for restraint and dialogue from various nations and organizations, including the United Nations, ASEAN, and major powers like the United States, China, and the European Union. The divergent approaches of Cambodia and Thailand toward international mediation highlight a significant diplomatic challenge. Cambodia has sought third-party intervention while Thailand has preferred bilateral negotiations. The refusal of Thailand to accept outside mediation complicates efforts to de-escalate the conflict and poses questions about the effectiveness of existing international frameworks for conflict resolution in Southeast Asia. An analysis of the geopolitical implications and the roles of external actors in this conflict could shed light on broader regional dynamics. 4. Humanitarian impact and civilian displacement. The humanitarian consequences of the conflict are dire, with reports of significant civilian casualties and mass evacuations. Over 135,000 people in Thailand and tens of thousands in Cambodia have fled their homes due to the fighting, raising concerns about human rights violations and the protection of civilians. The targeting of civilian infrastructure, including hospitals and gas stations, exacerbates the humanitarian crisis and highlights the need for urgent humanitarian assistance. An analysis of the conflict's impact on local populations and the international community's responsibility to protect civilians in armed conflicts is essential for understanding the broader implications of the conflict. Conclusion. The 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict is a multifaceted issue that intertwines historical grievances, military escalation, international diplomacy, and humanitarian challenges. A thorough examination of these points can facilitate a deeper understanding of the conflict and inform discussions on conflict resolution strategies that could lead to sustainable peace in the region. Here are 3 famous historical cases of territorial conflicts that bear similarities to the 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict. 1. The Kosovo War, 1998–1999. The Kosovo War was a conflict between the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, specifically the Serbian government, and the ethnic Albanian population in Kosovo. The roots of the conflict lay in historical grievances, ethnic tensions, and territorial claims. The dispute over Kosovo escalated in the late 1990s, leading to a humanitarian crisis and widespread violence. The conflict drew international attention and intervention, particularly from NATO, which launched a bombing campaign against Yugoslav forces in 1999. The war concluded with the establishment of a UN-administered territory in Kosovo, which unilaterally declared independence in 2008. A move not recognized by Serbia and several other countries. This situation mirrors the Cambodia-Thailand conflict in its historical context of territorial claims and the involvement of international actors seeking resolution. 2. The India-Pakistan War over Kashmir 1947-present. The territorial dispute over Kashmir has been a significant source of conflict between India and Pakistan since both nations gained independence in 1947. The region has seen multiple wars and military skirmishes as both countries claim it in full but control only parts of it. The conflict is rooted in religious and national identity, colonial legacies, and differing interpretations of sovereignty. The situation has led to militarization along the line of control and sustained international diplomatic efforts to mediate the dispute. Similar to the Cambodia-Thailand border conflict, the Kashmir issue involves long-standing historical grievances, military engagement, and the complexities of bilateral versus multilateral negotiations. 3. The Iran-Iraq War 1980–1988. The Iran-Iraq War was a protracted conflict initiated by Iraq's invasion of Iran in 1980. The war was fueled by territorial disputes, particularly over the Shatt al-Arab waterway, and long-standing animosities rooted in ethnic and religious differences. The conflict saw extensive military engagements and significant civilian casualties. Both nations engaged in aggressive military tactics, including air and ground assaults, echoing the military actions seen in the Cambodia-Thailand border conflict. The war drew international attention and resulted in widespread devastation, highlighting the complexities of regional power struggles and the impact of historical disputes on contemporary relations. These cases illustrate how territorial disputes often arise from deep historical grievances and can escalate into military conflicts, involving both local and international dimensions. Future outlook: predictions for the post-conflict phase of the 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict. The 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict has introduced significant instability in Southeast Asia, driven by historical grievances and territorial disputes. As the situation evolves, several predictions can be made regarding the potential outcomes and implications for both nations and the broader region. 1. Increased militarization and defense spending. In the immediate aftermath of the conflict, both Cambodia and Thailand are likely to increase their military budgets and reinforce their defenses along the border. This militarization may include enhanced troop deployments, procurement of advanced military technology, and increased military exercises. Such actions could lead to an arms race in the region as both nations seek to deter future incursions while also projecting strength. 2. International mediation and diplomatic efforts. As casualties mount and the humanitarian crisis deepens, there will likely be renewed calls for international intervention and mediation. Although Thailand has traditionally favored bilateral negotiations, pressure from ASEAN, the United Nations, and major powers such as the US and China may compel both nations to consider third-party mediation. This could result in a ceasefire agreement, albeit potentially temporary, laying the groundwork for more structured peace talks. 3. Humanitarian crisis and refugee influx. The conflict has already led to significant civilian displacement, with over 135,000 people evacuated from border regions. As fighting continues, the humanitarian situation is expected to worsen, leading to increased refugee flows into neighboring countries and further complicating regional security dynamics. Humanitarian organizations will likely mobilize to provide aid, but their access may be hindered by ongoing hostilities. 4. Long-term territorial negotiations. In the long term, the resolution of territorial disputes, particularly surrounding the Preah Vihear Temple and other contested areas, will be crucial. Historical claims will complicate negotiations, but both countries will need to engage in serious discussions to avoid future conflicts. This may involve compromises such as shared governance of contested areas or joint development initiatives, which could foster cooperation over confrontation. 5. Domestic political implications. Both governments may face domestic pressure as a result of the conflict. In Cambodia, Prime Minister Hun Sen's administration could leverage nationalism to consolidate power, while in Thailand political leaders will need to address public sentiment regarding military actions and casualties. Political instability in either country could undermine peace efforts and provoke further conflict. 6. Regional security frameworks. The conflict will likely trigger discussions about regional security arrangements within ASEAN as member states become increasingly concerned about the potential for escalation. This could lead to the establishment of a more formalized security framework aimed at conflict prevention and resolution. Promoting dialogue and cooperation among member states. 7. Impact on economic relations. The ongoing conflict will negatively impact economic relations between Cambodia and Thailand, which have historically been characterized by trade and investment. Disruptions to border trade and increased tariffs on goods could lead to economic downturns in both countries. In the longer term, economic cooperation may resume, but only after significant diplomatic efforts and assurances of stability are established. 8. Influence of external powers. The involvement of external powers, particularly China and the United States, will play a crucial role in shaping the conflict's outcome. China may seek to increase its influence in the region by offering economic incentives to both Cambodia and Thailand, while the U.S. may push for democratic reforms and adherence to international norms. The balance of power in the region will be a significant factor in the conflict's resolution. 9. Cultural and social reconciliation efforts. Beyond political and military solutions, there will be a need for cultural and social reconciliation efforts to heal the wounds of conflict. Initiatives promoting cross-border dialogue, cultural exchanges, and joint community projects could foster mutual understanding and long-term peace between the two nations. 10. Monitoring and evaluation mechanisms. Finally, any peace agreement reached will require robust monitoring and evaluation mechanisms to ensure compliance from both sides. These mechanisms could include third-party observers, regular reporting on military activities, and conflict resolution frameworks to address any future disputes before they escalate into violence. Conclusion. The aftermath of the 2025 Cambodia-Thailand border conflict presents both challenges and opportunities. While immediate tensions and humanitarian issues must be addressed, the potential for long-term peace and cooperation exists if both nations engage in constructive dialogue and compromise. The international community's role will be pivotal in facilitating this process and ensuring regional stability.